Hello everybody, it's Sarah, and today I want to talk to you about this lovely book right here, which is The Midnight Bargain by C.L. Polk. This was the buddy read for September for my book club of Queens, Witches and Valkyries, where I read one adult high fantasy book written by a woman or genderqueer person per month. Usually around the middle of the month I will upload a poll with 4 books on the Twitter of the book club. Links in the description box down below to the Discord as well if you want to join, and then you can choose which book you want to read in the next month. Currently for October we don't have a buddy read because I was lazy in September and also I am lazy in October, so uni started again, and so I just wanted to keep my TBR small. But in probably around a week, 2 weeks, 10 days, something along those lines, you'll get the next poll for the November read. But now back to this lovely book right here, which maybe I'll put here in the back so I don't have to hold it up. This is obviously an adult high fantasy because we read it for my book club. However, it's an adult high fantasy with a very strong focus on romance. I'm not sure, because I don't read enough romance to be honest, if I would classify it very specifically as a fantasy romance, because I do feel there's like romance isn't the central aspect of the story. However, it is very important to the story, so I don't know where the line is between a fantasy romance and just a high fantasy. In this book, every year within the capital city of this country there's the bargaining season, which basically means you have young eligible girls who show themselves kind of like debutantes type of way, and then you have young men who go to their fathers if they're interested and bargain for the hand in marriage of the eligible girls. Now our main character, Beatrice Claiborne, she does not want to be married because her biggest wish is to become a sorceress. And to do that, she needs this very specific grimoire. However, that grimoire is taken away from her by another young woman. And so Beatrice makes a deal with a spirit, and in return for the spirit helping her getting the book back, she's gonna have to kiss the brother of the woman who took the book away from her. And that's kind of the setup where we start. Now, as for negative things, there's only really one big negative thing that I have about this book, and that is that it felt like very old school, on the nose feminist fiction, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. However, I personally prefer not, like, nuance is the wrong word. I don't prefer nuance, although I do prefer nuance in all discussions. However, there's just some discussions like the bodily autonomy of women, for example, where it's like, what nuance? Like, I'm sorry, you're either for bodily autonomy or you're against it. But not to get political here, because that's not what this review is about. But what I prefer just generally when it comes to discussing social justice issues in books, especially within fantasy fiction, is just, you know, for it to not be that much on the nose. I forgot the word right now, I'm sorry. Bilingual problems. But I hope you get what I mean anyway. And the way things were discussed within this book, it was just so obvious, and all the men except for the love interest, or like 99% of the men except for the love interest, were just so incredibly evil and just so egotistical and did not care about women at all. And then the women played a surprisingly small role within the story, I gotta be honest. I feel like, I mean, there were some female characters, but yeah, I really didn't like it, and I really didn't like the dynamic between Beatrice, our main character, and I forgot, Isbeta, I think was the name of the woman who took away her grimoire, because the reason why I didn't like the dynamic is because I feel like Isbeta was almost too ignorant of Beatrice's plight throughout the novel. So there was just I did not like the way things were discussed within the books when it comes to women's decisions about their own bodies, about women's decisions, about their own lives. It felt a bit old school. Not that those discussions aren't still very important, but I don't know how to explain it, to be honest, because to properly explain it I would have to go into examples and into spoilers, and I don't want to do that within this review because I do want this to be a spoiler-free review. So yeah, I just did not like that part. Then I also didn't like some of the characters. I don't know, they felt, aside from actually most of the characters except for the love interest, including Beatrice, felt very, you know, like they had a purpose within the story, and that was the type of character they were. And they, like, with characters I do enjoy nuance. Even when I say, you know, some discussions, some political discussions, you know, of course there's always some nuance, but you know, with a lot of discussions there's more nuance than with others, and bodily autonomy for me is one of those discussions where it's like, you know, of course you can bring some nuance into it, but seems pretty clear-cut to me. But when it comes to characters and when it comes to the motivations of the characters, I do want nuance there. I do want, like, aside from some examples or some exceptions within fiction where it comes to retelling, so whatever, where I do like sometimes my two-dimensional characters, usually I don't like it when characters just have one purpose and that's it, and like that's where the story is going and that's what they'll be used in the story, and it doesn't feel like they're real people. It doesn't feel like they have any agency on their own. And yeah, it just I was pretty sad about that. I was pretty sad about that whole part of it. And also, I don't know, not that every book needs it. So of course, especially when it comes to authors of color, they have no need to expose their own trauma or expose themselves to their own trauma to write about, you know, injustices that they face in real life. I just would have liked it if there were a bit more of a, like, intersectionality within the discussions of injustices. I mean, there's some hints in terms of like class stuff, but that's just one little scene and then it's gone again, and I don't know. And I mean, I didn't expect like any race discussions to come into this book, because while we do get diverse characters, like different characters from different ethnical backgrounds, like race doesn't really play a role within this story. So again, that's completely fine. I don't need a discussion of race within every single book, especially when it comes to adult high fantasy. The same thing with queerness, actually. Although I did, queerness, that I am gonna actively criticize. Because when you have a book that is so much about bodily autonomy and women having to marry men, I do wish there were a bit more of a discussion of how queer women live within that context. I mean, one of the characters was a queer woman. I believe one of the characters, like, I'm pretty sure was asexual, and specifically stated to be asexual and not just asexual coded. But yeah, and that's where for me I'm like, it's lacking nuance, and where I would have wished there was a lot more nuance to that, because especially when it comes to things like bodily autonomy, there's so many aspects to that aside from just the gender aspect. And that's also what I meant with this feels very old school feminist fiction, because there was this one thing that was talked about and that was it. It felt very Handmaid's Tale, but not dystopian, and a bit more upbeat and with a big fancy romance subplot. And yeah, I was disappointed in that. But then moving on to things that kind of don't fall into positives or negatives is some of the relationships. Like, the relationship of Beatrice with her younger sister. I did on the one hand appreciate that, and I also appreciated, you know, that was where I felt like some nuance came in, because with Harriet, who is the younger sister, I just kind of went along the lines of, I kind of hate you and hate how you act, but also I kind of understand you. And the same thing with Beatrice. My space thing, I didn't have any space left on my SD card. So anyway, where was I? With Beatrice, I also kind of wanted to shake her, because on the one hand I understood her motivations, but on the other hand I was like, you're kind of currently ruining your family, but also it's really unfair that I put this on you, because it's kind of society's fault that the only way you can help your family is by marrying a man. So, you know, I did not particularly enjoy those feelings while reading, but I do think in a way it's well done, and there does come some nuance into it, at least a little bit. And now onto the positive things, which I gotta be honest, mainly concern the romance. First of all, yes, it was a bit insta-lovey, but to be honest, if I read a book where I know it's mainly about the romance, I already kind of go into it expecting that the two characters will fall in love. So I don't really mind if that happens quickly, as long as the chemistry is there. And for me personally, the chemistry between two main characters, between the main character and the love interest was there. So I did not mind the insta-love there. And then also I really appreciated our main love interest, because while especially the men from that one country were all just assholes through and through, and our love interest came from another country, I just really appreciated how he was written, because he was not like somehow miraculously the one woke man there, and he wasn't from the very beginning like open to the plight of Beatrice of not wanting to marry. But they did have discussions, and the main thing about him was not that from the very beginning he understood that, and from the very beginning understood that that was something bad that was done to women. It was more along the lines of, you know, well, men kind of have it a little bit bad too, and it just can't be helped, along those lines. It's just how it is. But he did think on things, and he did change his opinion slowly throughout the book. And that's what made him a really great character in my opinion, and what made him a lot more interesting to read about for me. So yeah, anyway, I don't know, I feel like I talked very negatively about this book, and I do think generally it's a well-written book. Like, there's some phrases and some passages in the book where I was like, yeah, I really love that, and I really love this passage as a whole or on its own. But overall, just this on the nose thing, and then also the way the book ended, which I wasn't necessarily a fan of, just, it wasn't for me. It just simply wasn't for me, and I just like more subtlety. That was the word I was looking for earlier in the video. I want more subtlety when it comes to discussing issues. And subtlety doesn't mean that those issues are only barely there in the books, but subtlety just means that, you know, it's not a punch in the face. I don't know how to explain it. But yeah, anyway, so that was it for my review of The Midnight Bargain by C.L. Polk. If you've read this book, tell me in the comments down below if you have similar feelings to me when it comes to this book. If you haven't read the book, are you maybe still interested in picking it up? Were you undecided and I've helped you decide now? I don't know. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribing. All the links to my social media are in the description box down below, so go and check those out. All the links to my book club, as I said, will also be left linked down below. Maybe you can use October to catch up on some books that we've previously already read in the book club. And yeah, with all of that said, I hope I'll see you soon. Bye!